Hey guys, it's Bro You Whack, and today Hazard got released early in Overwatch 2 for their traditional early playtest. For this weekend only, we all get to play the brand new hero early until they officially launch alongside the new season, which is season 14, on December 10th. So whether you're watching this during the playtest weekend or you're watching this when season 14 launches, what I want to do was to give a beginner's guide to help jumpstart your journey with the brand new tank Hazard. We're going to be looking at his hero kit, his abilities, his ultimate, and everything that you need to know before you get started with Hazard. Hazard is a Scottish hero that reigns from the newest faction within the Overwatch universe, the Freaks Gang. Motivated by a classic Robin Hood story where they steal from the rich and give to the poor, this character is going to be able to topple down the system with his unique hero kit that's powered by crystals. And there's no better place to start when exploring his hero kit than with his primary form of fire. Hazard's first and main form of fire is going to be called his Bone Spur, a gun attached to his right arm that is supposed to replace his limb that he lost during the military. This is going to be a mid to short range projectile weapon with a total of 8 shots in your gun. Each shot shoots a total of about 11 or 10 spiky crystals at the enemy. And if you guys don't know the difference between projectile and hit scan means whenever you shoot, that's automatically going to hit your target, but projectile weapons have travel distance. The farther you are from the enemy, the longer that bullet, or in this case a spiky crystal, will take to get to the enemy. Now I did mention this is a mid to short range weapon, but that's because this is a shotgun weapon, so you're better shooting your weapon up close to the enemy, obviously, to do more damage. And you do roughly about 67 damage up close and 135 critical damage whenever you get headshots. And while I don't really want to talk much about numbers because these can all change, you do have a relatively standard reload time of 1.45 seconds. And that's honestly Hazard's Bone Spur gun. There's not really much else to it, but when it comes to the rest of his hero kit, specifically his abilities, there's a lot more to it because, well, we've seen a lot of these abilities beforehand, but with its own unique twist to it. Hazard is going to have 3 abilities in total: his Jagged Wall ability, his Spike Guard ability, and his Violent Leap ability. The first thing that we'll look at is his Jagged Wall, which would be considered his tanky ability that is supposed to kind of protect his team a little bit. Jagged Wall, as the name suggests, is a spiked wall that is launched by Hazard that also damages and knocks back nearby enemies. So while it can provide your team some protection, this is mainly going to be used for damage and trying to CC the enemy backwards. Now, if you send the wall, which again, this is a projectile, you can send it really far, the initial land of the wall will knock back the enemy and do a total of 40 damage. But every single time the enemy touches this spiky purpley wally boy, it will do an additional 40 damage. So if you want to be like Nemo and touch the butt, or in this case the wall, you're not going to really want to do that because it's going to hurt you. Now this wall does have a 12-second cooldown, and that does account for how long the wall is up. Either way, you're going to have 12 seconds whether you prematurely end it or you have it go for its whole entire duration. And the wall does have a little bit of health, but it can get destroyed. The next ability is going to be his Spike Guard. This allows you to protect yourself while firing homing spikes at your enemies. Well, this can also be seen as a somewhat protective ability for your allies. This is once again just going to influence Hazard to be very aggressive because there's going to be 2 hidden abilities along with Spike Guard. Because while you activate your Spike Guard, it's not only going to reduce the damage that you take, but it's also going to regenerate your ammo. So if you think of it sort of like how Doomfist's block works, it's going to work similar to that, but instead of health and shield, you're going to gain ammo. Now, I did mention earlier that you do fire honing missiles or spikes at the enemy, but that only happens if you're like right next to the enemy, like within a couple of meters. And if you're wondering how close you have to be to the enemy, there is a purple indication on the floor that will show you how close you have to be for these spikes to actually go and hone in on them. But if you are next to the enemy and you are firing spikes, these spikes are going to be based on this meter. Similar to D.Va's defense matrix, the longer that you hold down the honing spike missiles, the more spikes that you shoot, but the longer it'll take to charge. Each spike does about 25 damage if you just lightly tap this spike guard, but if you continuously hold down this ability, you can do a total of 262 damage. And while there is a slight cooldown of this ability of like a second or so, you're mainly going to be worried about the resource meter that this spike guard uses. As terms of how much damage that you block, this is something that I don't really have the exact numbers for, but I can just show you when it comes to Bastion just laying in his damage when you're spike guarding, because you just tank that. I mean, I guess he is a tank, and some people say, oh, well, you're using armor. Of course you're going to take it. This is how much damage you block when you just have regular hit points. A lot of damage. And the third ability in Hazard's hero kit is gonna be probably my favorite named ability in his kit, which is Violent Leap. Now, while the name might suggest that this is gonna be a damage ability, there's actually two things that you can do with this ability. The first is that it'll just simply lunge you forward as Hazard, but if you press the Violent Leap button again, you'll actually slash at the enemies, knocking them back. Hence the name Violent Leap. It's a leap that can also be violent. Now, the leap, it actually doesn't really lunge you that far, about like 13 meters or so, and even if you look straight up in the air, you're still gonna go the same distance. As terms of the actual damage that you do on top of the knockback CC that you get, you'll do a total of 80 damage per slash, but you have to slash like right next to the enemy. It's not like a Commando Modern Warfare 2 knife where you're lunge forward while slashing. No, you only get the damage if you're next to them. And an important thing to note is that when you are leaping in the air, you are able to use your Bone Spur, your ultimate, and any other ability in conjunction with the Violent Leap. Like, this really is a Violent Leap. And the best part about this ability is that it has like a 5-second cooldown. Now, you do have to actually complete the leap for the cooldown to activate, but you can kind of use this ability kind of generously. Before we look at Hazard's ultimate, we gotta check out his passive ability, which is called Vault. This passive will provide even more mobility for Hazard, allowing you to scale up short walls and also grab ledges. While this will easily get compared to Kiriko's, Genji's, and Hanzo's wall climb passive ability, Hazard, he's not that much of a ninja. In fact, he barely even has a black belt in karate. And finally, the moment that you've all been waiting for, Hazard's ultimate, which goes by the name of Downpour. Sends spikes down my spine, literally, because Hazard launches spikes from his back and it downpours a rain of spikes onto the battlefield. Just like what we saw in the trailer, spikes cover a certain area on the battlefield. However, the effects of the spikes equals immobilization for the enemy. Now, the difference between immobilization and just stunning them is that the heroes are still able to like turn around in a 360, and they're still able to use abilities, all with the exception of mobile abilities. Now, the area that the spikes cover, which actually the spikes don't really cover the ground, it just more or less goes and seeks the enemy, is about 30 meters in length and about like 10 meters in width. And if an enemy is in that area, it will not only immobilize them, but it'll also do a total of 90 damage to that enemy. These spikes can also go through walls, so an enemy might be on the other side of a wall, and if you still use the ultimate, it will still seek them out and immobilize them. And that was your beginner's guide of the brand new hero Hazard. And just as a reminder, I didn't really dive too deep when it comes to the numbers, just giving kind of a general idea of how much each ability does, because that is kind of important. But just know that all of these numbers are probably going to be changing when they launch with Season 14 on December 10th. But until then, I love you guys. Thank you guys for watching. More Overwatch 2 videos to come, and bye.